Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Happy Monday. Welcome back to Partnership for Profits. I am Will Brooks, your host this morning or afternoon, depending on where you're watching or listening. And today we have a guest who has gone head to head with cities, corporations, and some of the biggest defense teams in the country and won. We have Emily Ruby here with us today, who is the founder of Greenberg Ruby Injury Attorneys in California. Emily, I'm super glad to have you on. And I'm super glad to be the first podcast that you've made an appearance on. Welcome to Partnership for Profits. Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So let's get a little bit into your origin story, if we can, Emily. Let's start at the beginning. What tell me a little bit about what inspired you to become a trial lawyer and what's drawn you to take on some of the toughest kinds of cases that you've taken on?
Yeah, so growing up, I kind of was able to see that lawyers and politicians really were the ones who were able to make change and get things done. So as I got older, I realized I didn't really want the drama of politics, and so that guided me toward law. I have no lawyers in my family, so I've had to navigate the route through law school and taking the LSAT and everything on my own. But and then just life experiences that have happened. I had a lot of bullying when I was in junior high, which was difficult for me, and I did feel like there was a lot that could be done about that was not being done. I do now handle a lot of bullying cases. I was an environmental studies major at UC Santa Barbara, and then I started realizing with environmental issues, really lawyers were the ones who were making change there as well with lawsuits. And you mentioned when you asked me to be on the show, Erin Brockovich was a big motivator of mine. She wasn't a lawyer at the time of that big PG case, but yeah, so just different life experiences as I went on, and then ended up being able to have my own firm, and that's short version of how I got here.
That's awesome. So you said you take on bully, like when you say take on bullies, do you mean like corporations, like kind of the Erin Brockovich style, or do you mean like people that are physically bullying other people, or is it both? I want to.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. So I sue school districts who have an issue with bullying. So I'll represent the students who actually have been bullied at the school. So again, that's something that's kind of personal to me, and there's a lot that school districts need to be doing, especially with cyberbullying and everything that's going on these days. And then take on a lot of big corporations and trial, and have a lot of successful settlements as well, but all sorts of product liability cases, and I handle catastrophic work injury cases primarily, so serious injuries or wrongful deaths, but on work sites. So it a lot of times involves heavy equipment or big general contractors, all sorts of different corporations. Starbucks I've gone to trial against, and
wow. So you're taking on like the big guys. So when you're taking on, big corporations, cities, large institutions, what's the mindset it takes to stand up to people that are in that kind of position of power?
I think the main thing is you really have to have confidence in your case and know that you're doing the right thing. Because it costs a lot of money to take a case all the way through trial against a big company. They have the best defense attorneys. They have huge pockets. The insurance companies have endless resources that they can spend fighting these cases. So if you don't genuinely believe in your case and really feel a connection to your client, then I don't think that you'd be able to do it. So that's what motivates me. And it's risky. These cases are never a slam dunk. So I think you have to have that confidence that you're doing the right thing.
Love that. Confidence is key in everything, but certainly when you're taking on like a Starbucks, for example, like I imagine that the teams that they have in place are on their end are massive, and the resources that they have available to them are kind of never ending. So yeah, being prepared and having that in place for sure is a huge thing. Was there a case early on in your career that really shaped who you are as an attorney? One that made you realize, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. You mentioned Erin Brockovich being kind of an inspiration, and is it PG&E? Was that the big case that they did?
Yeah.
Was there a case that you worked on that kind of solidified this is what I'm supposed to be doing?
pretty early on in my career, I started working for David Greenberg. That's where the Greenberg and the firm name comes from. He was much older. He's 50 years older than me. So he had his firm for 50 years when he hired me. And pretty early on, I just realized I was already burnt out. I'd only been a lawyer for about a year, handling smaller cases like car accidents and stuff. And I had a really frank conversation with him that I needed to be doing bigger cases and more challenging cases, and really feel like I was holding companies accountable who needed to be held accountable, because a lot of cases, I mean, they are accidents, right? So, so that, I think the very first one was this horrible case. It was a explosion of a tanker, petroleum tanker. And we represented one of the individuals who was severely injured. They were working on it, and then the family of one who died in this explosion. And I mean, looking at it, it was an impossible case. And David told me, if you get a successful settlement on this case, I'll send you on safari in South Africa. But he was, I think, half joking, but half serious. And I ended up getting an amazing settlement on it. He did send me to South Africa. And, but that was really, I mean, I made him come to depots with me because the defendant is now in prison. They used my depositions for my case in the U.S. attorney used it and everything. So that one really just, it was a lot of work, many, many years, and just plodding along, not glamorous, you know, doing all the work for it. But that one, I think I was like, okay, I can do this. And it just, the feeling of validation of winning that one was huge.
So you mentioned how long that took with the types of those types of cases. What's the typical lifetime of a case like that to go from, you know, start to finish? What do you, is it usually like years long that you're working on those?
It's years, and there's a few reasons for that. I mean, the courts are really, really backed up. So we're getting trial dates set out at the end of 27 right now, 2027. So, but there's just a ton of litigation. They'll file motions to dismiss the case, motions for summary judgment. So yeah, they're really, really hard fought cases. And when you're asking for 8 figures, they're not going to just roll over and write you a check. So they need to get their hours billed, and it takes years.
Is that type of work contingency based? Like it is. So you could go for years without you guys seeing any kind of compensation from it until it's done. Wow.
Yeah, I just settled a case with my co-counsel who we brought in, but in 2017 I filed the lawsuit, and there was a directed verdict in trial. We went up to the Court of Appeals. We just got back. We just settled it. It's October. So yeah, 8 years later, and that one went trial all the way back up to appeal all the way back down. So
is that pretty typical for a length of this type of case?
No, that's unusual, and that's because we had to go up on appeal, and then they petitioned the Supreme Court. So yeah, that was a long one, and a usually long one, but it's 3 years, I would say, pretty standard.
3 years though is a long time. That's a long time. So when you're working with these types of cases, being fearless, I'm sure, is a big part of, you have to kind of be fearless. What's the key to staying fearless when you're up against teams with those unlimited resources and influence? How do you keep pushing forward? Because it's like I said, it can feel daunting, I would imagine. So what's the key for keeping that fearless mindset and just kind of keep pushing?
Honestly, you just can't be afraid to lose, and you can't be afraid to sometimes get your butt kicked, because it does happen when you're taking these cases. And that was another thing David taught me, you know, that's just part of it. And so you get kicked down, you get back up, and you have to be fearless, honestly. So
you mentioned, I keep going back to Erin Brockovich. I'm a big film buff, so love that movie. But you mentioned, like, one of the things that's great about her story is the empathy that she has for the people that were involved in that case. Your work, I'm sure, involves helping families through horrible, tragic losses. How do you balance the empathy with the focus that's required on these kinds of cases? Because you have to be able to juggle both of those things, right?
Definitely. I mean, in a lot of ways, you're your client's confidant, you're their therapist in some ways. They come to you, they're relying on you for direction, for advice. Sometimes I even think of it as when you're a plaintiff's attorney for someone who in a really serious injury case, you kind of owe the same, I almost feel like the same duty to them, almost like a doctor does, because their well-being is your number one priority. Ultimately, right. That well-being is you're trying to recover money for them. But you have their most intimate knowledge of their lives. You have their medical records. Like, you just have this relationship with your clients. That's a really unique relationship. So you definitely, I think, need to have the empathy in order to be a successful attorney. And then when you go to trial, you're telling their story. They're up on the stand for part of it, but really that you are there to tell their story. And so I think you have to have that empathy in order to be successful in my field. But then honestly, I shield them from a lot of the difficult parts, because when your father has passed away, you don't want to hear the defendant saying that he's at fault for his own death. And so there's sort of a line there. And I think that helps myself as well, that I can focus on the humanity part with my client, and then the liability part kind of keep that separate almost. And that's what I try to do in those really difficult cases.
So you mentioned strategy and you mentioned storytelling. I want to know, in your experience, what wins cases? Airtight strategy, powerful storytelling, or is it a mix of the two?
I think it's a mix of the two, and it's also preparation. So the most prepared person is quite often the one who's going to win. And I think you want the other side. I'm not the type to fight dirty. I think having the other side respect you. I would much rather go against the best defense attorney in the country than someone who doesn't have the skills and is going to rely on, dirty tactics. So yeah, I think all those things is just try to have the respect from the other side, be prepared. All of those things.
Have you run across defense sides using those dirty tactics? And if so, do you call them out when you see them? How does that work when you see maybe a big powerful defense firm trying to do some underhanded stuff, or I don't know, badmouth your client when it's not necessarily something that's when it's not true? Like, how does that work? Do you call them out? Like, is it a big dramatic courtroom moment, like calling them out? I'm just kind of curious, because we all have in our heads how these kind of trials work in a courtroom, but I know it's probably not quite as dramatic as, or maybe it is. I don't know. I'm not an attorney, so how does that work when you do see that kind of underhanded stuff taking place? Do you have to call it out then and there, or does it happen behind the scenes? Talk to me a little bit about that.
It depends. I mean, honestly, it happens. There were times in the beginning of my career where I would leave a deposition crying, hold it together, and then I'd go out because I had gotten completely, bullied by
Sure.
an older male attorney, and you ultimately get a thick skin as time goes by. But yeah, I now do stand up for younger female attorneys when I see that they're not getting the respect that they deserve. So that happens in a lot of cases, and I will call it out right there. And it's just not something that should be tolerated now. And that's not to say that it's the majority. It's not. I mean, it's a few bad apples, but it happens. And I do think it's important for men and women, just if you see it, just to call it out. And I do see that a lot. And there's really great women for all of the plaintiff bar associations. There's always a women's chapter. Amazing women. We stick together, tell stories, stand up for each other. So it's great that we have those resources now. I know, 10, 15 years ago, even that didn't exist for a female attorney. So
really, even 10 or 15, that's crazy to think about, because that doesn't seem like that long ago. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Even when I started out, there were not those types of resources that there are now.
So the women's section of the bar is a newer thing.
Well, just having these really powerful groups. And I think part of it has to do with that things are so easy online now. So we have listservs and everything that if you have a horrible deposition, you just go on there and say, this guy was a total jerk. I just heads up if you go against him and things like that. I think it's just easy now with such easy access to email and things like that.
You have each other's backs. That's great.
Yeah,
absolutely. Great. Absolutely. I wanted to ask you about that. But I didn't really know how to get into that as far as you being a woman attorney. And this may be stereotyping things, but I would imagine that a lot of these big defense counsels are majority men, are they not?
Oh, yeah.
So you have experienced that in the courtroom where they're kind of, it's okay, little ladies, like that kind of, you still run across that even today?
Oh yeah, the amount of times in my career where I don't know if it's on purpose or not, just to kind of get me off my game or not, but they assume I'm a court reporter, come into a deposition.
Oh,
yeah, yeah, and they'll say, oh, the court reporter can sit up there to me, and they probably know it's not that I'm not, but all sorts of things that just happen, and it happens all the time. Yeah.
So you just developed a pretty thick skin, and you're like, you're gonna learn that I'm not a court reporter here pretty quickly, and then I'm gonna put you in your place. Man, that's crazy that's still even today. I mean, it's 2025. Like, come on, what are we doing? I can't stand. My mother is she's retired now, but she's a retired ordained Methodist minister, and she got ordained as a Methodist minister in the early 80s in the deep South in Georgia.
Wow.
And so I grew up experiencing a lot of that firsthand that she had to deal with. I didn't obviously have to deal with it, but I saw her dealing with it in these Southern churches. I'm a preacher's kid, but there were older people that, we're not gonna have a woman leading this congregation. They would leave the church, and so I just when I hear those kinds of things, it riles up my feathers, because I'm like, this is ridiculous. We're just, people are people. Let people be people. It doesn't matter. So absolutely. Not to get on a soapbox, but when I hear that, it just kind of gets me riled up a little bit. I hate to hear that that's even still a thing, but I guess it is. I guess it's still a thing.
Yeah, when I was pregnant, I have a 15-month-old baby, and when I was pregnant, I mean, I was worried to let defense attorneys see, because I was like, oh, they're just going to take this as a weakness, type thing. So. But again, most attorneys are great, respectful, but there are those out there.
Anybody who treats pregnancy as a weakness knows nothing, because there's nothing harder than having a baby.
Right.
You're producing a human being inside of your body, and you're still working at the same time. So come on, people, get with it. So you've been in some intense trials, Emily. Is there a courtroom moment that taught you a lasting lesson about people or power or persuasion? Is there a moment that kind of really taught you a lot about how things are going to work?
You win. I mean, you learn as much, I think, from your wins as from your losses. And so again, sorry, I said before we went on air, I have a cold right now, but so you learn from everything. I mean, those moments where you just absolutely annihilate a defense expert, you leave the courtroom feeling like you're the best lawyer in the world. And then there are days when you leave and you're like, that just went so sideways, I'm going to lose this trial. So I don't know if there's really a specific moment. I mean, I definitely, sort of following up on the baby story, I tried a case in Bakersfield, which is 2 hours from LA, a 5-week trial when my baby was 4 months old. And he came up with me, my mom came and helped and everything. And I think that for me personally was just proving to myself I could do it. Yeah. I could run the law firm. I could try a case. We got a great verdict, and high 7-figure verdict. And so I think that, like, now when I'm having tough times and just kind of thinking like, oh, is it all worth it? I look back and I'm like, I got this. I can handle it. So
was the baby in the courtroom with you? Like your mom in the back with holding the baby?
Okay. I don't know if that's type of talk about empathy, right? Be like, hey, yours, look at my cute baby.
Hey, take every advantage you can get, right? No, that's amazing. 4 months old, the baby was 4 months old, and you went and tried a case. That's like, again, that's not weakness, that's strength. That's amazing. So beyond the courtroom, your cases, they kind of create some ripple effects, right? There's policy changes, safety reforms, accountability. Is there an impact that you are most proud of, that you've had with any of the cases that you've tried?
I think the dangerous condition of public property ones, so dangerous roadways, those do actually make an impact. I think there are issues with their accidents at the same intersection over and over. And really, until there's a lawsuit brought and the attention, the media, the public attention's brought to it, nothing's done. So I think those ones, there's one right now that's just in litigation, but already they removed the flashing yellow arrow that was at the intersection that's the subject of the lawsuit. So I don't know if I can take credit for it, for that or not, but you do see this, I think, the impact. And then with products, I've had a lot of product liability cases. And again, I haven't seen, I don't know if they've made changes directly as a result of that, but you just start to see products get safer. And that being part of that, and among all the other attorneys, amazing attorneys who handle product liability cases, that is why products get safer. And so just being part of that in big picture, I think, and knowing you're part of making the world a little safer is a good feeling.
That's amazing. That's great. Yeah, 100%. I've said this before on the podcast. We in our business, we work almost exclusively with attorneys, and with attorneys that work in workers' compensation, product liability, personal injury. And when I tell people, when they ask me, say, "What are you doing now, Will?" and I tell them what I do and who I work with, they always, "You work with attorneys?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I work with attorneys." And I tell them the kinds of attorneys that we work with, and they go, "Oh, geez, you're working with personal injury lawyers." And I'm like, "You don't understand what these people are doing and the impact that they're having and the help that they're providing to people." I'm always an advocate for what attorneys do and the importance of what you guys do. And so, there's most of that change doesn't happen without an attorney being somewhere involved along the way. So love that you're affecting change and making that stuff happen.
Thanks for standing up for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Lawyers are important. Imagine where we'd be without them. We would have anarchy. It would be awful. So, kids would still probably not be in car seats if we didn't have attorneys. It wouldn't be a law. It wouldn't be required. We just have 3-year-olds rolling around the back seat, which is what it was when I was a kid. That's what we did. We just rolled around the back seat. But that's great. I think it's super important what attorneys like you do for all of us, for the general public. Do you practice is your practice nationwide, or is it exclusively in California?
Throughout California only. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So last question for you, Emily. I want to get into legacy, the legacy of Greenberg and Ruby. When you think about everything that you've built, the firm, the verdicts, the clients that you've helped, what's the legacy that you want to leave behind?
I think one thing to add too that I think is important for everything that you just mentioned is mentoring other attorneys. And being able to share your knowledge. And I'm lucky that I'm now at that point where I get to speak at conventions and been interviewed on the news a few times and everything, and just sharing your knowledge, especially with younger attorneys and attorneys who are leaving different areas of law and starting personal injury. So I want to have a legacy of being someone who really fought for the underdog. And I take on these really difficult cases, knowing that there's a decent chance I may lose or not get the result I want. But those are the people who really need to be advocated for the most. Right. And so, like I said, most of my injuries are catastrophic work injury cases. It's workers on construction sites who are not given the personal protective equipment they need, everything else. So they need someone to stand up for them. And workers' comp system does not compensate people fully for their injuries. And so I just want to be known as a fighter and someone who stood up for people who really needed it.
Love it. We need more people to stand up to bullies. 100%. Emily, you are fighting the good fight. And I love that. And I really appreciate you coming on and speaking with me today on the podcast. Before we wrap it up here, I want to make sure I give you a chance to let people out there know, especially in California, because we do have some folks over there that listen and watch the podcast. Let people know how they can get in touch with you, how they can get in touch with the firm if they need help with anything.
Our website is Greenberg Ruby Law. That's Greenberg with an E. And we have information about our cases and about me, everything on our website. So that's a great resource if you want to learn more about types of cases we handle and myself. It's www.greenbergrubylaw.com. We're on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. And then you can also just call the office at 323-782-0535. Love
it. Yep. If you got a bully that you're dealing with and you need some help confronting that bully, call Emily. You'll be in good hands. I can tell from our conversation here. Emily, again, this has been such a great conversation, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us. And I also, again, commend you for fighting that good fight for the little guy. So that's fantastic. Those of you who are watching the live stream out there, we really appreciate you guys tuning in today and checking out the show. If you are listening or watching after the fact on YouTube or Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts, excuse me, maybe I'm getting a cold. We appreciate you guys tuning in as well, and we really appreciate the thumbs ups and the stars and the likes and all that good stuff. And subscribing to the podcast is a huge thing to help us get the show out to more people. And people like Emily get their word out to more people as well. So we appreciate you guys. I'll be back with more episodes later this afternoon. We've got a couple of more great guests coming in with a couple of more podcasts today. Hopefully they will bring as much good stuff to the table as Emily has brought today. Until then, we will see you next time. Emily, thank you again for popping on, and we'll have to get you back on again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great talking.
You got it. All right. We'll see you guys shortly on another episode of P for P.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.